but I call the hearing to order, and good afternoon. I would like to thank Ranking Member Fisher and our colleagues for joining us. Our witnesses, who I will introduce shortly, are Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson, Isaac Kramer, Executive Director of Charleston County, South Carolina's Board of Voter Registrations and Elections, Janae Nelson, President and Director Counsel of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. We're also going to hear from our other witnesses. I let them last, not for any omission, but because Senator Fisher will be introducing them, and that includes Alabama Secretary of State Wes Allen and Brian Cruz, Election Commissioner for the Douglas County, Nebraska Election Commission. More Americans than ever have cast a ballot in recent elections, and it is in large part because of the work of state and local officials, and these elections have run smoothly, and top security officials in both Republican and Democratic administrations alike have confirmed the security of recent elections, including last week's primary elections. 18 states have already held primaries this year. In fact, 3 of our witnesses, Secretary Benson, Secretary Allen, and Mr. Kramer, have overseen primary elections this year already, and there are many more to go before the general election in November, including 3 states, Georgia, Mississippi, and Washington, in which voters are casting ballots today. With voting already underway, we are here to discuss the key issues facing the state and local election officials on the front lines of our democracy. One area of particular urgency is artificial intelligence. We have already seen how AI can be used to spread disinformation about elections, like the fake robocalls using the president's voice telling people not to vote in New Hampshire, which is now under investigation by the state's Republican Attorney General. We must work across the aisle to protect our elections from these threats, and all of the witnesses at our hearing last fall agreed we need to put guardrails in place when it comes to AI. That is why I'm leading a bipartisan bill with Senators Hawley, Coons, Collins. We've been joined by Senator Bennett and Ricketts, and it's broad support on both sides of the aisle to prohibit fraudulent AI-generated deepfakes in our elections. We do this within the framework of the Constitution, which of course allows satire and the like. But we are very concerned about what we have seen in just snippets of ads and videos that have gone out that attack candidates actually on both sides of the aisle, but they are complete deep fakes and not the actual candidate, and you can't even tell it's not the candidate. We also need to, in addition to banning deceptive deep fakes, we also need disclaimers when AI is used in other ways. Last week, I introduced a bipartisan bill with Senator Lisa Murkowski to require transparency in ads substantially generated by AI, so that whether you are a Republican or a Democrat, voters will know if the ads they see are making use of this technology. We got some guidance from the hearing we had earlier last year, in that we don't want those labels to apply to every single thing when AI is used. So we have defined that in a way that I think will pass muster and make it easier to pass that bill. But I cannot emphasize how important I believe it is to also pass the deepfake bill. Finally, since AI can make it so much easier to spread disinformation about things like voter registration deadlines or polling locations, I myself called ChatGPT, or wrote in a question, I should say, and asked, well, what about this polling place in Bloomington, Minnesota? They often have lines, where should they vote? And it answered, I'm making up the numbers now, but like 123 Elm Street. It didn't even exist. Clearly they have work to do, so we have concern about that as well. We must tackle these issues head on. One way is to the work Senator Collins and I are doing to require the Election Assistance Commission to issue guidelines so election officials are prepared to meet these challenges. 6 states, including my state of Minnesota and Secretary Benson's state of Michigan, have passed new laws to address AI in elections, and more than 36 states have bills pending, both red and blue states, but we cannot rely on a patchwork of state laws, and Congress must act. Election workers, including volunteers, also continue to face a barrage of threats and intimidation. We have heard testimony in this committee from officials from both parties about threats targeting them and their families. It is no surprise that a survey last year found that nearly 1 in 3 election officials said that they have been abused, harassed, or threatened, and 1 in 5 said that they know someone who left their job due to safety concerns. This has a real impact on how elections are run, including efforts to recruit poll workers and volunteers. Last November, more than a dozen anonymous letters, some containing fentanyl, were sent to election offices in at least 6 states, leading to evacuations and delays in ballot counting. That is why Senator Fisher and I called on the Justice Department to prioritize investigating these incidents, and why I lead a bill with Senator Durbin and 26 co-sponsors to protect election workers from intimidation and threats. In addition, it is critical as ever that state and local governments have reliable federal funding to maintain election infrastructure, keep pace with new technology, and combat cybersecurity threats. Election security is truly national security, and these investments must be prioritized as our intel agencies continue to warn about foreign adversaries trying to influence our elections. I have heard from officials in red, blue, and purple states about the need to get steady funding when it comes to elections. Finally, I'll note that in many states, voters continue to face new laws that will make it harder to vote. We had a major hearing on that this morning in the Judiciary Committee with Senator Warnock launching off the hearing to talk about the John Lewis Voting Rights Bill. We also need basic federal standards like those contained in the Freedom to Vote Act that I lead, along with many of my colleagues, including the Democrats on this committee. I will not give up until these bills become the law of the land, because I believe we truly need to have federal voting rights protections for the citizens of this country. I want to thank our witnesses for being here, and I look forward to hearing your testimony about your work year-round to prepare for our elections. I'll now turn it over to Ranking Member Fisher.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Chairwoman Klobuchar, for holding this hearing, and thank you to all of our witnesses for being here today. Today, while 3 states conduct elections and 1 week after Super Tuesday, we'll hear from state and local election officials from across the country about one of the most fundamental aspects of our democracy, the administration of free and fair elections. We look forward to learning about how jurisdictions across the country are preparing for the upcoming elections. Election Day is not just the date when voters cast ballots. It is also the culmination of months of preparation by state and local election officials to ensure that every eligible voter can fulfill their civic duty and participate in the democratic process. Election officials maintain voter rolls, identify polling locations, train poll workers and volunteers, procure and test voting equipment, prepare ballots, and educate the public about the upcoming elections. While every 4 years they step into a brighter spotlight, these hardworking and dedicated individuals address election administration challenges for every election, regardless of what offices are on the ballot. On top of defending the cybersecurity and physical security of election infrastructure, election officials must recruit and train the next generation of poll workers, while also retaining experienced poll workers. They also work hard to ensure voter confidence in the electoral process and the ultimate outcome of the elections. I am interested in hearing from our witnesses how they adapt to the changing landscape, to ensure election integrity. I also want to understand not only the challenges election officials face, but whether the existing federal resources are working as intended to ease those challenges. Our founding fathers provided states the primary responsibility of administering elections under our Constitution. The resulting diversity of election systems is a strength of our democracy. I look forward to a productive discussion and extend my sincere appreciation to our witnesses for being here today as they are in the midst of preparations for the 2024 elections. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Senator Fisher. I'll introduce three of the witnesses, and then Senators Fisher and Britt will introduce the remaining two. Our first witness is Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson, a role she has held since her election in 2018. Previously, she served as Dean of Wayne State Law School, and she received her bachelor's degree from Wellesley, her master's from Oxford, and her law degree from Harvard. Our next witness is Isaac Kramer of the Board of Voter Registration and Elections for Charleston County, South Carolina, where he has served for a decade and was appointed Executive Director in 2021. He is a graduate of Wheaton College. Then we have Janae Nelson, welcome again, President and Director Counsel of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. She began her career at LDF as an extern before she was a Fulbright Scholar in Ghana. She returned to LDF as Associate Director Counsel and assumed the role of President in March of 2022. She received her bachelor's degree from NYU and her law degree from the University of California, Los Angeles. Senator Fisher.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, I thank all of our witnesses for being here today. We have with us Mr. Brian Cruz from the great state of Nebraska, who serves as the Election Commissioner for Douglas County. Mr. Cruz has served as Douglas County's Election Commissioner since 2016 and was recently reappointed for a third term. I've had the privilege of working with him to serve Nebraskans for many years, and I'm pleased that he's come all the way from Omaha, Nebraska to be with us here today, but we have direct flights. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, Ranking Member Fisher, for your continued leadership on this committee. It is a pleasure to introduce Secretary Allen today at this hearing. Wes Allen serves as Alabama's 54th Secretary of State, where he is our state's chief election official. Prior to his election to his current office, Secretary Allen spent nearly a decade as Pike County, Alabama's probate judge, which is the county's senior election official. He was then elected to the Alabama House of Representatives, where he served as the vice chair of the legislature's Constitution, Campaigns, and Election Committees. I know that Secretary Allen is honored to appear before this committee and offer his knowledge on matters, as he's made it his mission to make it easy to vote in safe and secure elections. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much. If the witnesses would now please stand and raise their right hand. Do you swear that the testimony, give you a second. Do you swear that the testimony you will give before the committee shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. You may be seated. You will now proceed, and we'll recognize you each for a 5-minute statement, starting with Secretary Benson. And Senator, I will leave to vote for a little bit at some point, so thanks. Secretary Benson.
Thank you, Chair Klobuchar, Ranking Member Fisher, and members of the committee. It's an honor to be joining you today for this important hearing. These next 8 months will define the future of our country and our democracy. And as Michigan's Chief Election Officer, that reality is clear to me every day, both as we work to ensure our elections are safe and secure, and in our efforts to protect every voter and every election official from the lies, threats, and deceptive tactics that continue to plague our democracy. It's been a challenging few years for us, yet our democracy is getting stronger. First, voter turnout is on the rise. From 2020, when we saw more citizens vote than ever before, to 2022, when Michigan led the nation in youth vote turnout, citizens are engaged and they are voting. Second, the number of ways voters can participate in our elections continue to expand, from the right to vote from home to early voting to traditional election day voting places. Michigan's experience underscores that the expansion of options to vote directly leads to higher voter participation across the political spectrum in every election. But as the chief elections officer of a battleground state, I know these successes do not tell the whole story. We go into this election cycle expecting bad actors to use misinformation, turbocharged through AI, to divide, deceive, and deter voter participation throughout our country. I'm not just talking about deepfakes. AI will also make it easier to mislead voters about the voting process or even conditions at a polling place. Imagine a voter receiving a text warning saying there's long lines at a precinct and not to go, or another seeing a social media post showing a polling location changing because of flooding. All of these could be false, and all of these could deter participation. The realities of AI underscore the need for federal investment in our elections. AI introduces a level of speed, scale, and sophistication that is difficult for under-resourced state agencies to handle on our own. Federal funds help us to support and bolster our state cybersecurity infrastructure and do more voter education to address this evolving threat. We also need the Department of Homeland Security and CISA to be more aggressive in identifying and combating threats and in notifying local officials and states with critical security information, helping us ensure voters know what to do when they encounter deceptive election practices. At the state level in Michigan, we are doing our part. We've enacted laws to require disclaimers and disclosure of political advertisements generated with AI, and we've made it a crime for anyone to knowingly and deceptively distribute AI-generated deepfakes. But now we need you to do your part. As U.S. Senators, you can protect every voter in this country from the harmful effects of deceptive AI-generated content by passing the Protect Elections and Deceptive AI Act. Finally, we cannot have a secure democracy if we do not protect the security of the people who protect our democracy. Our job as election administrators increasingly forces us to endure harassment, false and malicious attacks on our character, and threats of violence, all because of lies about our work and our integrity. On a morning walk throughout her neighborhood, Detroit City Clerk Janice Winfrey was approached by a man who told her, "You are going to pay dearly for your actions in this election." Oakland County Elections Director Joe Rozelle was recently threatened that he would be hanged for treason. Former Rochester Hills Clerk Tina Barton received a voicemail saying 10 million patriots will surround you when you least expect it, and that she deserved a knife to the throat. These are just a few examples of what our election administrators endure. And as misinformation increases, so do the threats. We all have a duty to protect the people who protect democracy. In Michigan, we've made it a state crime to threaten or intimidate an election official with the specific intent of interfering with the official's duties. This should be a federal crime. Election officials are professionals. We are nonpartisan. We put voters first, and we are firmly committed to ensuring every citizen can have rightly placed faith in their vote and in our elections. It should be your highest priority to ensure we have the funding, the resources, and the legal protections to make democracy work for everyone, because ensuring our security is critical to ensuring election security. I've spent my career defending the right to vote of every eligible citizen. That commitment has never wavered, and it will not waver now. I'm here today to ask you all to share that commitment and help us ensure we are protected so that our democracy continues to thrive this year and every year. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Secretary Allen.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today about election security. As Alabama's Secretary of State, I serve as the state's chief elections official and work closely with the probate judges, circuit clerks, sheriffs, absentee election managers, poll workers, boards of registrars, who are all an integral part of our elections process at the local level in each of our 67 counties. When I took the oath of office 14 months ago, I made it a top priority to ensure that our elections are fair and secure so that every eligible voter who wishes to cast a vote in any election in our state could do so with confidence, knowing that their vote would be properly counted. Elections are the bedrock of our constitutional republic, and it is my constitutional duty to ensure our elections are conducted with integrity, honesty, and accuracy. Voter registration and voter file maintenance are the foundation of election integrity. Registered voters can choose to participate in elections in Alabama with the confidence that our elections process is fair and secure because Alabama has taken steps, solid steps, in our state to ensure election integrity. We have enacted legislation in Alabama that makes it illegal for any voting tabulator to be connected to the internet. Alabama state law requires the use of paper ballots in all elections. Each of our voters must verify their identity with photo identification at his or her polling place. If a voter does not have a valid photo ID for voting purposes, my office will send someone to the location of their choice, even their home, to issue them a voter ID upon request. Proper voter file maintenance is essential in instilling and preserving confidence in elections. Just this year, I, with the help of the dedicated team of the Office of Secretary of State, established the Alabama Voter Integrity Database, AVID. For the first time in our state's history, we have been approved to directly cross-check our voter file with the National Death Master Index maintained by the Social Security Administration, so that when an Alabama voter dies in another state, we are able to identify and remove that individual from our voter file. Quickly removing a deceased Alabamian from our voter file not only instills confidence, but also allows us to maintain a more accurate voter file. Every state should be able to do this, but excessive federal regulations make it more difficult than it should be for states to access this important information. You, as members of the United States Senate, can remove these obstacles and make this information immediately available to every Secretary of State in the country. AVID also enables us to work with the Alabama Law Enforcement Agency to receive notifications of Alabama licensed drivers over the age of 18 who have received a driver's license in another state. Additionally, by comparing the National Change of Address database maintained by the United States Postal Service to our voter file, we identified registered Alabama voters who have requested to have their mail forwarded due to moving to a location outside of the state. For the first time in our state's history, we have entered into agreements with each of our border states, allowing us to identify people who are registered to vote in Alabama and in a border state. Voters who are identified as possibly relocating through any of these methods receive a mailer from their county boards of registrar, asking them to confirm their relocation or update their Alabama voter registration information. To date, we have, through AVID, identified 109,709 Alabama voters who have likely relocated outside of the state. But unlike deceased voters, we cannot quickly remove them from the Alabama voter file. The National Voter Registration Act of 1993, also known as the NVRA, mandates that we wait 4 years to make such removal. If I can make a recommendation to this body to increase confidence in our elections, it would be to shorten the 4-year waiting period mandated by the NVRA, especially considering the fact that state-to-state movers account for 19.9% of all relocations according to the U.S. Census Bureau. The 4-year waiting period allows an individual to remain in a voter file in a state in which they no longer live for several elections, including a presidential election, a U.S. Senate election, a gubernatorial election, 2 congressional elections, and numerous local elections. 4 years, quite frankly, is too long. This federal law requires secretaries of state to knowingly maintain bloated, inaccurate voter lists. Amending the NVRA to shorten the 4-year waiting period would certainly increase voter confidence, decrease bloated voter files, and result in more accurate voter files across the country. Again, thank you for your time. It's been an honor and a privilege to appear before you today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Secretary. Mr. Kramer.
Chairwoman Klobuchar, Ranking Member Fisher, and members of the committee, I want to thank you for having me here today. As was mentioned, I'm the Executive Director of the Charleston County Board of Elections, but also I have the privilege of serving as the Vice Chair of the Election Subcommittee for the National Association of Counties and as a member of the United States Election Assistance Commission Board of Advisors. I cannot overstate the significance of the county perspective in any topic involving election administration. We are the frontline workers responsible for ensuring smooth elections nationwide. Administering elections in Charleston County is a responsibility I hold with the utmost seriousness. But my journey is also very personal to me. It's rooted in my mother's dream of becoming a U.S. citizen when I was a child. Witnessing her exercise her right to vote left a permanent mark on my life, igniting in me a passion for politics and then election administration. I am here testifying before you because of her hard work and determination. And as we stand on the threshold of another crucial election cycle, it is important for us as election administrators to draw from the lessons of the past to strengthen the foundation of our democracy for the future. When we reflect on the preparations for this upcoming year, in Charleston County, our main concerns revolve around three pivotal needs, and these are crucial: the protection of election officials, the security of our polling places, and the assurance of adequate federal funding. The safety and well-being of our election personnel is at the heart of our operational concerns. During the June 2022 primaries, our polling places became battlegrounds for these disruptive elements to the democratic process. A local group traveled to each polling place on election day. They harassed our poll workers. They claimed we were breaking the law. And at several locations, they actually called law enforcement to arrest our poll workers. Just to be clear, South Carolina law does not allow us to have law enforcement enter a polling place unless they've been summoned by the majority of poll workers. And then one of the leaders on social media posted this: "For all of you on the team tomorrow observing the polls, good hunting. You know what you're looking for. We have the enemy on their back foot. Press the attack forward." The enemies he's referring to were his neighbors. Good people who are just trying to carry out their civic duty of the democratic process. And as our lead poll manager returned on that night, many of them expressed to me personally they felt unsafe. I believe Charleston County can be a model, though, for other election officials across the country trying to see how they can make their polling places safe and their voters safe. Our office meets monthly with our counter threat manager, our local law enforcement, emergency management, and public safety. Together, we are enhancing our training for active shooters, also how to mitigate any disturbance at the polls, and how to communicate in highly stressful situations. We hosted our first ever election security workshop last year, and we created a law enforcement guide that we give to all our law enforcement partners so they know what they do if they get a call on election day. Charleston County has made substantial investments to the election process through building upgrades, surveillance systems, and also giving us access control mechanisms that are imperative to mitigate any potential threats in our election operations. However, I want to say this clear: not every county can make similar investments. Numerous counties in South Carolina, rural and urban, need an infusion of federal funds to improve the security of their election infrastructure, and that's very vital to the security of our elections. South Carolina is one of several states that does not pass HAVA grant money to the county level. This needs to change. Congress needs to give us the ability, the counties, those funds, so we can have a direct access, because we are the ones who run elections day to day. This year, we have a huge effort to recruit the next generation of poll workers, as many of them have left due to threats and harassment. To demonstrate that it's possible that counties can apply directly for funding, the EAC awarded $1 million to support the Help America Vote College program. Charleston County applied and received $76,000 for an innovative program aimed at recruiting college students to serve as poll workers. In addition, we have created the Day for Democracy program, which allows county employees to serve on Election Day. County employees who participate, they also get poll worker pay on top of administrative leave with pay. Over 15% of our poll workers in 2023 were county employees. Having trusted public officials serving as poll workers greatly boosts public trust in the election process. And many of our poll workers remember a day when elections were simple. They now become more complex, the stakes have never been higher, and we need Congress's help. You can pass Senator Klobuchar's Election Worker Protection Act, or other proposals that will strengthen election worker safety. Also, we must impose penalties on anyone who would threaten, pressure, or dox election officials. Without increased funding and action to protect election workers, counties will continue to see increased resignations of career election officials and struggle to recruit and retain seasonal poll workers. In South Carolina, over 70% of election directors have left their posts since 2020. And I'm often asked, why am I still in this profession? It's really a simple answer for me. I believe in the United States of America and the freedoms we enjoy. I'm able to serve this great country by providing the mechanism by which our country was founded. the ability to give everyone a voice in shaping the future and direction of our country through voting. Election administrators need the support of Congress now more than ever to protect and fund our elections.